When I first moved into my new apartment, everything seemed perfect. It was an old, charming building, tucked away in a quiet part of town. The kind of place that had character, wooden floors that creaked, tall windows that let in plenty of light, and a cozy atmosphere that made it feel like home. It was also cheap, surprisingly cheap for a place so close to the city center. I should have known something was off. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, settled in, and went to bed, tired from the move. But then I heard it, soft, almost imperceptible at first, a faint sound coming from the ceiling. A slow, rhythmic thumping, like someone was walking around upstairs. The landlord had mentioned that the apartment above mine was vacant, so I figured maybe the building was just old and making weird noises. I brushed it off and tried to sleep. But the sound continued, growing louder. Footsteps. Pacing back and forth, right above my head. I told myself it was nothing, just the building settling. But it was the beginning of something far worse. Over the next few days, the footsteps became more frequent. Every night, around the same time, I'd hear them. Heavy, deliberate, like someone pacing back and forth. I tried ignoring it, but it was impossible. The sound kept me up, and I started losing sleep, becoming irritable and paranoid. I talked to the landlord, hoping for an explanation. Maybe someone had moved into the apartment upstairs without me knowing. But he just frowned and shook his head. "There's no one up there," he said firmly. "That apartment's been empty for months." I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't believe him. There had to be someone there. No building made footsteps like that on its own. One night, unable to take it anymore, I decided to investigate. Armed with nothing but my phone flashlight, I made my way upstairs. The door to the apartment above was old, the wood warped from years of neglect. I hesitated for a moment before knocking. No response. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I tried the doorknob. Locked. As I turned to leave, I heard it, footsteps, coming from behind the door. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. My heart pounded in my chest as I pressed my ear to the door. I could hear something, moving just on the other side. And then, as suddenly as it started, the footsteps stopped. I backed away, feeling like I was being watched. I rushed back downstairs, locking myself in my apartment, too shaken to sleep. The next few days were worse. The footsteps were no longer confined to the ceiling. I started hearing them in my apartment, soft creaks in the floorboards, like someone walking slowly through the rooms while I was in bed. The worst part was, every time I tried to catch the source, the sound would stop. It was like it was taunting me, always one step ahead, just out of reach. I couldn't take it anymore. My lack of sleep had turned into full-blown paranoia. I kept checking my apartment for signs of someone sneaking in, windows, doors, everything. But there was nothing. No sign of a break-in. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of something much closer. Not from the ceiling or the walls, but from the room next to mine. A soft creak, like someone shifting their weight. My heart raced as I lay frozen in bed, listening. I could feel it, something was in the apartment with me. I slowly got out of bed, my hands shaking. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the bedroom door, trying to be as quiet as possible. The air in the apartment felt heavy, thick with a presence I couldn't explain. I opened the door, my phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. Nothing. I walked through the apartment, checking every room. But everything was as I had left it. My paranoia was getting the best of me, I thought. Maybe I was losing my mind. I headed back to bed, trying to convince myself that it was all in my head. But as I walked down the hall, I passed the small closet near the entrance. And that's when I heard it again. A slow, deliberate thump from inside the closet. I stopped dead in my tracks. My hand trembled as I reached for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. Slowly, I turned the knob and opened the closet. It was empty. Except for one thing. A small, old-fashioned key, lying on the floor. I picked it up, my mind racing. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't for anything in my apartment. My thoughts went immediately to the locked door upstairs. The next morning, with the key in my pocket, I went back upstairs. The hallway was eerily quiet as I stood in front of the door. My hand shook as I slid the key into the lock. It turned easily, and with a soft click, the door swung open. Inside, the apartment was dark, dusty, and completely empty, except for one thing. In the middle of the floor, facing the window, was a chair. And sitting in that chair was a figure. It wasn't moving. As I stepped closer, my blood ran cold. It was me.